My name's Jim Starlin. I've worked in comics 40 years. Thanos came out of me, Drax, Gamora, a few other things like the Infinity Gauntlet. I've been busy. I created Thanos shortly after I got out of the service. Kirby and Ditko were my gods before I started in the business. Carlos Castaneda, Orson Welles movies. I just soaked up everything and tried to utilize the things I thought were best out of all those. There was a time where I was going to community college. There was a guest lecturer who came in to speak about Thanos and Eros, the dark and light side of human nature. I latched onto the dark side and we went from there. Originally, he was a skinny character. Everyone thinks I sort of ripped off Darkseid to get to Thanos, but really what I was ripping off was Metron, who was the new god that I liked much better. And when I proposed that I use him in Iron Man as a fill-in issue, Roy said, bulk him up. I bulked him about the same bulk that Darkseid was in the Kirby books, which was not all that big either. And over the years, both of them have sort of inflated, so everyone thinks that it came out of Darkseid. It's Metron I ripped off, folks.
I'm going to allow that.
Who did I love working with on Thanos? Ron Lim was one of the people I've worked the most with as a writer and him as the artist, and Bernie Wrightson was probably a close second. And they were both very different in their approach. Ron Lim would give me exactly what I envisioned when I wrote the description. Bernie, on the other hand, never would, and it was always so terrific. George Perez was fun to work with, even though he didn't stay for the whole run. I mean, I'm having a great time working with Alan Davis on these recent Thanos graphic novels that I've been doing, and he's just an incredible artist. I look at him and I loathe him just because he draws so well. Thanos! Drax was going to be Thanos' kryptonite. I knew I wanted to create this all-powerful character. He developed differently. I sort of lost that interest in him, and Thanos didn't need that weakness as it went along. He became his own weakness, the architect of his own destruction.
What did it cost?
Everything.
And Drax drifted for a long time. I eventually brought him back in the Infinity Watch and brain damaged him and found him a much more interesting character that way. And I think it's that character and the modern day visuals that they have for Marvel editorial that are sort of the mix that David Bautista put together for the films.
She just told everyone your deepest, darkest secret.
Dude, come on. I think you're overreacting a little bit.
You must be so embarrassed.
Actually, Drax was a bit of a ripoff too. I did some fanzine work for something called the Texas Trio, and one of the characters they had was Dr. Fate. They asked me if I would redesign the character. It's hard to tell, but I sort of sprung off with this sort of superhero look that Doctor Strange had for a while. Very short period where he had that mask on and that. When I started working in comics and Drax came up, I just said, well, I don't want to waste this nice design I did on Dr. Fate because I'm never going to do it again. So I changed it around and gave him a thicker belt, and that's how Drax came out looking. I was never really pleased with that outfit. I think the more modern day Drax is much more what he should look like.
When Thanos took my home world, he killed my parents in front of me. He tortured me, turned me into a weapon. When he said he was going to destroy an entire planet for Ronan, I couldn't stand by him.
Gamora was an answer to the fact that the Warlock series was sort of a sausage fest. Her design is a little strange because I wasn't sure what to do with her visually, and I one day went over to Alan Weiss's, a fellow cartoonist, studio, and he did a lot of photorealistic work, and so he had all these European skin mags. And as I was leafing through them, talking to him, I came across this woman in a leotard with this long dark hair and said, that's kind of cool if I put a couple of skulls here. The strange thing was that over in Spain, this artist Esperan Maroto, he actually obviously looked at the same pictorial, and about the same time that Gamora showed up, this character in one of these eerie comics that he drew, same outfit. Very noticeably the same character, same inspiration.
And I am not some starry-eyed waif here to succumb to your pelvic sorcery!
How has Thanos changed since I first started him to what he's become now? Well, the most of his changes over the first 20 or 30 years were my doing, because I was, for the most part, the only person who ever did anything with him up at Marvel. People used to think that I was coming over to do a Captain Marvel series or a Warlock series or a Silver Surfer series, but basically I was coming back to Marvel to just do another Thanos story. Since then, I haven't really paid any attention to what's been happening with the comic book Thanos, so I can't comment on that. But Movie Thanos, I think they did a wonderful job. The only thing, my only complaint is they brought back the weapon that he had inside the second movie, which is from the Thanos helicopter. Oh, I didn't do it. Larry Lieber, who was Stan's brother, they gave him this book called Spidey Super Stories, and he had Thanos running around robbing banks and escaping in a helicopter that had his name on the side. You know, it was for little kids, it was an entry-level thing, but now I've been told that several writers have credited me with actually creating it, and so I want to pull what hair I have out still every time I hear that.
Oh, okay, sure, Quill.
The movies is fascinating because you come into those projects and you know nothing's going to be a carbon copy of what you did. Only a fool would think that was going to happen. I find it fascinating the things they retain and the things they change. Gamora is the character who's the most like what I have in the book. She's the adult in the room.
Groot, get out of the way! You're gonna get hurt! Hi!
She's the one who keeps the ships going straight. Drax is this strange combination that Gunn and Batista came up, which I just find adorable.
I have famously huge turds.
Thanos, though not following the letter of that character, they followed the spirit of it. And it's kind of an odd construct because they pulled a lot of things out of other projects that I'd worked on and incorporated it. They got rid of Mister's death because the studio didn't feel abstract entities were something the movie-going audience could accept at this point. They went back and dug out something I had written for Thanos in the Silver Surfer 34, and they used that as his motivation, where in my story, it was him bullshitting the surfer, and then their story, it was the actual motivation.
Titan was like most planets. Too many mouths, not enough to go around. And when we faced extinction, I offered a solution.
Genocide.
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike. They called me a madman.
Well, we are overpopulated. We do live in a finite universe. There is only so much to go around. We are going to run into the problems that the cinema Thanos has talked about eventually, and we're just fooling ourselves into thinking we're not.
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist. I call that mercy.
Blown away by the fact that it actually showed up on screen, more blown away that it's a project that came out well. There's been so many bad comic book movies, and I was right up until the time I was walking into the theater, I was going, please don't let it be bad. 2 minutes in, even before the Hulk got beat up, I said, well, you can stop sweating on that front. Thanos first appeared in Iron Man number 55. Iron Man being the birthplace of Thanos and Iron Man being the cause of death of Thanos in the movie. I don't think that was unintentional, I believe. They'd been building to that also, though. I mean, it was in the first movie, the Infinity War, they sort of established that push and pull against Stark and Thanos.
I hope they remember you.
Well, when I first started writing Thanos, they couldn't do a spaceship going across the screen that didn't wobble because it was on a wire. Computers have come and changed the entire game. Movies have become much more sophisticated from when I was a kid. I never could envision this future. You know, I'm close to 7 years old at this point, and everything around me is a surprise. These cell phones I walk around with, they are the mother boxes that Jack Kirby used to use in The New Gods. I find life incredible, and I'm having a great time watching how it's going. It's made Thanos something into that he wouldn't have been before.